We are going to practice drawing an eye. We're going to go from step to step on this so that you can review and really learn how to do the eye properly and shade it properly and get the shape and so forth. As always, we are going to start the 6H so that we don't do any damage to the paper. And one of the things that really helps me to get the correct shape of the eye is to take my pencil and pretend I'm drawing around it to get the shape. And I do that a few times. And then once I've implanted that into my mind, then I'll come to the paper and I'll see if I can get that same shape. And sometimes you won't always get it right the first time, but that's what erasers are for. Okay, using the side of my pencil, not the tip. The one mistake that most of you guys make when you're trying to do an eye for the first few times is you make the tear duct too small or non-existent. So you want to get a tear duct in there. Now I've made the edge of mine a little bit round. It's not quite so round, so I'm just going to come in and add a little more to it. But it is a pretty big tear duct if you look at it. And then it's got some shapes in there. So I'm just going to put, there's a little curve right here. You see the curve? And then another little piece of flesh in there. Eyes are kind of weird looking. And that's it. I'm just going to leave it just like that for now. And then I'm going to come over to the iris. Okay, that's the color of your eye. And the best way to get the shape of that and the size, most importantly, where it's sitting in the eye, is to look at the distance from the iris to the edge of the eye. So from each side to each side. So look at the distance here, look at the distance here. And then I come down here and I think about that distance. And so that iris actually starts about right here on this eye. And then over here, see the distance, about right here, right? Now look at the distance here. Barely there, right? So we're going to come up to about right here. And the top of it is cut off. So when I make this iris, I'm going to make the entire thing and it's going to pop out of the top, and that's okay. I'll show you what we're going to do next on that. It won't stay there forever, I promise. So now I have my iris, and I would venture to say it's pretty darn close to being in the correct spot. It's at this point though you can actually look at the outline of your eye and see if you're off. And I kind of think I'm off a little bit. If you look at the distance from here to here, it actually looks a little bit big. So it's at this point that I will change the shape just a little bit. Okay, and then take my eraser and get rid of that extra. All right, so that is actually a little bit better shape. And let's check this side. This side looks pretty good. So we're going to leave that like it is. And then we're going to come back before we erase this top part. And we're going to put the pupil in the center. The pupil is always in the center if the eye is straight on. Okay? It looks off-centered if your eye is sideways, if you're looking at a profile or an angled face, but this one's straight on, so the pupil is going to show right in the center. Okay? So the center would be from here to here. This is going to be my center. Okay? And you want to make sure that you get your pupil in there the right size. You don't want it to be too small. The tendency is to make it very small, but look at the distance. And I think I'm there. I think that's about right. Now I want to put in my reflection. So, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I've got that reflection in there. Now that there, and if you see, I'm measuring out where the bottom is by where the bottom of the pupil is, right? So it's just a little bit above where the pupil is, okay? So now I can take, and I'm going to come back and color in my pupil with my 6B, because I want to go ahead and have something to show for. I tend to do that every time. You don't have to do that right away, but I like to, because I want to start seeing things pop. So you see I've got that nice rich dark color in there right away. Okay, now I'm going to take off the top of that iris. We don't need it there anymore because it was there to help us measure our pupil, the positioning of our pupil. So we're going to take that off. Okay. All right, so I'm pretty happy with the shape. I think my pupil's in the right place. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this dark hue around my iris and make sure my iris is shaped properly. And I'm going to go ahead and use my dark pencil for that. And I'll tell you, I'm going light as I can possibly go. Using the side of it so I can get that nice blur, and I'm just taking my time. So see, it's not as dark down here as it is up here, and it's bigger. So just pay attention to what your picture's telling you. When I'm looking at my reference, you guys, I'm looking at it every few seconds, because I want to make sure that I don't draw something that's not really there. And your mind tends to tell you what's there. If you don't look, it'll just automatically fill it in for what it thinks should be there. And then almost every time you'll be wrong, because none of us are that good that we have such a photographic memory that we can look once or twice and figure it out. Okay, now that I've got the outline of that iris in there, and I'll go back in and I'll touch it up. It's a little rough right now, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and get a little crazy, and I've got that same hold that I was telling you earlier when we're working with the sphere, where I got control of the pencil by holding it in the 3 fingers, and I'm not going to press hard. This allows me though to still use the side of my pencil but closer to the tip. So I'm not using the tip of the pencil, I'm still using the side, it's just closer and I've got more control. And now I'm just going to put like a flower shape in there, just to get it started. And I'll go back in and do some detail and hopefully make it look more like the picture. But for now, just to get it started so that there is some shapes in there. Okay? And if you look at your reference, it's darker towards the pupil. So I'm just going to come back and start filling it in as it kind of appears. And the reason I say kind of, because it's more of an illusion than anything else as to what's going on with these shapes and designs of the eye. And you can get very intricate, very detailed if you want to, but that can always come later. So I would just focus on getting some of these designs in there. Maybe, you know, you can make some lines. It's got some lines in, and then once you get some of that going on, then you can actually, I would change pencils, come back with your 6H, using the side of it very lightly, fill in over what you just did, get some more color in that eye. You'll come back and start drawing in some of these gnarly little details that are in there, but for now we're trying to get it filled in and trying to get the color as close to the real thing as we can. And see, I'm going sideways with my strokes, but that's okay, because I'm going to fill it in smoothly so that you don't see that there's any strokes at all. It just is going to appear to be as color, and I'm not damaging the paper, so there won't be any lines of it being sideways. Okay, so once you get used to knowing how to use the pencil, then you'll understand that. And you'll be able to come back with the eraser because you're not damaging anything, and you'll be able to take out highlights as you need to. All right, and it's at this point you can come back in with a little bit darker pencil. I wouldn't use the darkest. I'm going to use the B on this one, and I'm going to come around the edge and just pull out some color just to get the eye more blended as an eye would be. And if you're using something other than newsprint, then it's going to be a little bit different than how mine is turning out. The newsprint takes the graphite a little differently, but that's okay. Just adjust. And let's come back with this pencil and blend off the edges of what I created. I'm going to have to go to a darker pencil because it's not picking up the graphite. So we'll try the 4B and see if that works. Sometimes you just kind of go through the list. Yeah, and that one's working pretty good. Just taking that edge off a little bit. Okay, and I think that's enough for the moment for this eye. We're going to come back and do more detail on this eye. But for now, we're going to stop and work on the outside of the eye a little bit. Just get a little more in there just so you see. Just filling it in. Looking closely at my reference while I'm doing it. Okay, so that's enough for now. And we'll come back, we'll even put those eyelashes in there, but we'll get our eyelashes in first on the outside. All right, so I want you to jump to the 4B, make sure, that's what I was just using. Make sure that you get the 4B. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start putting in some shading. Now, the eyelashes are not coming out of the eyeball. They're coming out of the eyelid within, like, gosh, a 1/16 of an inch up. They're not coming out from right here, they're coming from here, okay, from here. It's very tricky. They're still, even right here, it looks like they're coming out of the eyeball. No, it's still on the lid of the eye. They're just angled differently because of the positioning of the lid. So before I put any eyelashes in there, I am going to get all the rest of the shading in. The smoother you can make that, like the sphere, when we did the sphere earlier, the better this is going to look. But I, at this point, jump right in and start putting color around the eye. So now we've got some color around our eye. Now we have something to start working with. And I'm actually going to stay with the 4B, and I'm going to start doing a little layering around the lid of the eye. And after I do a little layering to get this nice eyelid line in here, this is actually a gradient. This isn't a line, so you don't want to draw a line above your eye. You want to do it as a shading technique. So watch, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to put the side of my pencil down. It's my 4B, and I'm just going to layer. So I'm looking at the distance again. You start with the distance. I'm looking at the distance, and I'm going to just stay in one spot and layer that, and watch the distance as I'm coming around the eye. It's all about going back and forth from your reference to your picture and then back again. And this is dark in here, so from here I'm going to darken down to here. Might need a little more on the lid, but I'm going to get this nice and dark in here. And you know, see how it's staying soft, and like with this light coming in on the edge there, we'll come back with the 0-point eraser to get to that. So now I've got that in, and see how the shadow stops right here and then kind of angles up. So, and that's right above the pupil. So I need to make sure that I'm in the right spot. And I'm going to bring it in just a little bit and then angle it up. Keep looking at my reference. Take off any edges that I've created. And now I'm starting to get a nice lid on this eye. And now what I can do, actually I'm going to come around and do the rest of it, and because what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to come in with my 6B, and this is kind of a weird angle that I have to go because I'm inside this box drawing, but it's still working. So hopefully it's coming out in the view for you. But you see now the edge of this lid where it stops, so if this is the edge of the eye, and if this is the edge of my eye here, then I need to bring this lid out pretty far, maybe out to here, because once I get my eyelashes, I'm going to need that space, okay? All right, so now I can take my 6B and make these little wrinkles just by going over that same area. It's the same pressure, it's just a darker lead. Because I'll tell you, if I want to take my 0-point eraser and go in there and erase that, I can do it and it'll come right off, okay? So that's the whole point in layering with these different weights. All right, and now we're gonna start on the inside of the eye, and we'll come back and we'll do some more shading on this, of course, but we've got some basic things going on, and that's what was important. So now I'm going to come in and start shading the inside of the eye, and keep in mind this eye is not white. It's whiter over here, but it's not really white. So I'm going to go back to my 6H, and I'm going to begin shading the inside of this eye, and the first coat is going to be the entire inside of the eye, like so. And I'm going to come over here, and you see this, there's a shadow that starts here and goes up. So I think I'll see if I can turn my page a little. Just got to put a first layer. We're layering, first layer, then second layer. All right, now I'm going to go to the B, and you see this little edge right here? Let's get that edge in there. And at first when you start putting it in, it kind of feels like you got too much color going in. But you don't. Don't let it fool you, because you're going to get darker. And having this gray tone come in is what is going to make your eye pop and look 3D. So trust me when I tell you, you got to have that color in there. You can always dab out a little color. Get your 6B, and let's come in with a 6B, and very lightly, I've got a good control on my pencil. Find the way to use the side of your pencil lead and have control of it without using the tip. Okay, that's what that is good for. Okay. All right, so let's get back to business here. So I'm going to take my 4B and I'm going to start putting this color in around here. And the shading, it doesn't just extend here. This goes all the way into here. So I'll put this initial dark line in here and here. So we'll start with the first one. And I'm just going to very carefully, see it kind of curves around like this. So I'm really looking at my reference. I've got this curvy shadow that comes in. And you want to make sure that you're really looking at your reference when you're getting this shape in here so that it looks like your reference. And that's what's going to make it photorealism when you get ready to do portrait. I'm going to pull in some of the shading in here, which is behind it. And now I'm looking at this, and here's some shading here. So after I do a little shading inside of this area of the tear duct, I'm going to come out of the side of it and darken this in with this. I'm using the side of my graphite, and I can't see the end here, but I'm assuming that it's kind of dark up here as well, and I'm going to blend it out. See, I'm blending it out. So it's darker here, but it's not darker here, but you can't tell where the transition begins and ends. Because when I'm coloring out, I'm coloring soft. Okay? And I want to make sure that I get all the pieces so it's smooth. See, I've even the teeny tiniest little circles sometimes you have to do. See, teeny tiny. Alright. Now, and I see I've got the shape a little bit wrong, because even though it curves around this way, it also curves back. So I'm going to go in and fix this right now. And that's better. That's better. Now see, because I put that shading in the back and I've got this little dark piece here, it looks like it's round. It looks like it's popping, right? All right, now I'm going to do the same thing with this line. So you don't really want to go in and just make lines with these parts of your picture, because it's not going to look 3D, and we want everything to look 3D, right? So you just do a little bit at a time, that's all. Just a little bit as you go along. And what's really going to make this line pop is I'm going to go right in here and put this dark shadow in where this eye is. And I'm just going softly. It's going to make a big difference once the eyelashes are in, but you don't want to put those in until the last, okay? Because if you put them in now, then they're in the way. And I know it's tempting because we want those eyelashes. Eyelashes is what makes it pretty. But we're not ready for the eyelashes, so you need to wait. So you've got that dark edge here, and I'm barely pushing. I'm just filling in to make sure I don't have any little white areas that shouldn't be there. A little bit of detail. Sometimes it just works to spend time doing a little bit several times over. That's layering. I'll show you how cool this kneaded eraser can be. Let's see, I'll put it on purpose a little bit too much in here. Okay, so I got a little bit too much. And so watch what this kneaded eraser can do. Just barely tapping off the edge. And this is called knocking it back. Okay. I'm going to work on putting the shading in here. So I've got my 4B. I'm going to use the side, and I'm just going to very carefully, very slowly color in some of this shading. And the paper that was on top of this one, because this is newsprint, whoever used it, maybe it was me, I don't know, but whoever used it was pressing somewhat hard. And so this dark area here and that light area there is where the indentation from the page before came onto the paper. So this is why it's so very important to always go lightly with your pencil, or to pull your paper off and actually put it on a board and tape it to a board, and that way you're not getting damage to other pages if you have a tablet, because once you have damage, it's hard to cover it up. It's really difficult to do that. But you can see where, with my shading, I'm just following along where the color is. Just going back to my reference 120,000 times. In other words, I'm looking at it every second, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and that allows me to make sure that I'm staying on track, okay? I'm not going to do a lot of shading, or a little bit, so there's a little bit underneath those eyelashes. We'll do a little bit so that we can get a lift on this eye. It's starting to lift pretty well. Take that out of there. And I'm going to be able to come back in, and you see how this is darker in here. We'll do that, but I'm going to finish this off. And what I'm finishing off is I'm getting these edges off, so it's not so prominent that it's an actual shape. So I'm just going to work the edges a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to leave that. Now I'm going to come back and work on this ledge, because we're going to be putting some eyelashes here in a minute. And as you can see, this is darker in here. And I'm going to leave it light below, and that's where the eyelashes are going to flip over. This is a 4B that I'm using, by the way. And I'm going to jump over, first of all, I'm going to take a little bit of this dark off right here with my kneaded eraser, just a hair. See, I'm making it kind of a, almost like a duckbill shape. And then I can use that edge to get in there. There, see, just take that off a little bit. And I'm going to come back in here and darken it just a little bit. Having to hold my pencil kind of weird because of the angle of the box, but I think I'm managing okay. See, I can go a little bit darker up here, but I don't want to go darker down on top of the eye because I've got this lip that's showing, so I can do it underneath and I can do it a little bit darker on top, but I want to be careful because I need to have part of that showing. Part of that lid needs to show for the eyelashes. Okay, all right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, I'm going to come back over here and darken this in so you can see that there's actually a difference between the eyelid and the eyeball. Right here you can't tell, I don't have that finished, so we're going to darken that in right here. Okay, and that shape might be off a little bit, but you know what? It's okay because I didn't press hard, so I can always come back and fix it if I need to. Okay, and I can take this off. Look how easy that comes off. Isn't that amazing? I'm barely touching it. Barely touching it, it comes right off. Okay, eyelashes. Eyelashes are very tricky. Most people, when they do eyelashes, they do this. Okay, that's not what we see here. What we see here, like this eyelash right here, for instance, I know it's above the pupil and over to the left. Okay, so if this was my pupil, the eyelash would come around like this. So it would be come around almost like a hook, and then you lift off at the end, right? So I'm going to come around like this and then come back to the back of the eyelash and just fill it in a little. And that's it. Don't fill out the end of it. The end of it's supposed to look like it fades into nothing. Look at the tip of these eyelashes. They fade into nothing. They are so micro small at the edge, not at the edge, at the tip, that you see them prominently here, and then they fade off into nothing, right? So when you do your eyelashes, you start heavier and you come off and you just lift off. It doesn't have to be fast or hard. It just has to be a lift. See that? Okay, so these are all lined up on the same. And if you make a mistake like that, probably wouldn't work. If you're drawing light enough, then you can just remove the one eyelash and continue on. So practice your eyelashes. Okay, these little ones over here, they're kind of like this. You got to come to the back of them after you make them. Come to the back and put a little more on the back. Okay. The ones on the bottom, practice a little bit before you put it on there. Some go this way. See that? Like that's a good eyelash right there, but it's not finished. It's got to have the back put on it. See that? The ones on the end, they're sweeping. Sweeping. Okay. A little bit of practice and you are going to make some gorgeous, gorgeous eyelashes. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put some eyelashes on here for you. Let's start with this one. And I always measure out where they're at too. So like this one right here, it's right above the pupil. It's a good place to start. And I'm not starting here, I'm starting here. This is where the eyelash is coming out, not here. And in fact, here's a smart thing to do. Take your little rectangle eraser, and probably your 0 point would work, maybe even better. Let's see if that would work better. Take that color out, because look, there's no color there. The color is in the eye, and I'm gonna just make it distinguishable for you. I'm gonna put some darker in the pupil itself, because it is pretty dark right there. Okay. But we're gonna get that out of there, and then the actual eyelash is coming out of this line right here. Okay. So we're gonna pull. We'll do this eyelash first. I'm gonna pull this one, pull it up, and make it come up. And that B is too light. I'm just going to go with the 6B. Fix the back of it. If I don't think I got enough on the tip, I'm just going to barely put some on there. the eyelid is a little bit too low. I can correct that by very carefully bringing the shadow back up here on top. Sometimes this happens, and the nice thing is that when you're using the pencils correctly, you can go in there and fix that. I'll just do that real quickly to show you, just so you can see that if you realize at the end that you do have a little bit of a mistake. Look at that, this comes right out. I think that's good for now, and I will put together another video for you, but hopefully that you'll enjoy doing this one, and we will see you guys real soon. Don't forget to send me your pictures. I want to see what you're doing, okay? All right, guys, take care.